Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. So again, I'm Jamilla. I'm from Barbados, which is in the Caribbean, if you don't know. It's a very small island. It's like a dot if you look on the world map. So you may not see it. Okay, so growing up in Barbados, I grew up in the countryside, very rural area. We had a few livestock and a small garden, and I spent most of my time when I was very young outside. I love to be up in the trees. We spent like the entire day, me and my cousins and some neighborhood children, spent the entire day outside, especially in summer vacations. Couldn't wait to be outside. Our parents weren't even really looking for us. We just spent the entire day outside, walking around, picking fruits for food. And it was just really fun. I would enjoy most of my time at the beach on Sundays. It's the best time ever. I love the beach. And with my uncles, we went on the back of his pickup truck when it was legal, of course. And I spent most of my time playing in sand and water, running along the beach, playing tag and stuff like that. And my favorite thing was to collect sea fans, shells, and some interesting rocks. So when I was about 11, I went to secondary school and I was introduced to geography, which is my best subject. I was introduced to the World Atlas, and from then I planned to travel the world. I just wanted to travel to all these exotic places. But before, I'd been traveling since I was about 3 years old to New York because I have a lot of family there. And then I visited like one Caribbean island, but I really wanted to get on an airplane and just travel everywhere, especially to like see the Alps, go to every continent, maybe except for Antarctica because it'll be a bit too cold for me. So naturally, I'm a very curious person, especially in nature. I want to know what is really going on, how do things work? So then around 15, I participated in my first beach cleanup. And for someone living on the beach, it was interesting seeing what we found. And if I could fast forward 2 years later, I ended up in the Caribbean Youth Environment Network, and I actually helped to coordinate beach cleanups. And it's basically everything that is made, that man-made, like man makes, can be found on the beach. It is ridiculous. So that's something that made me really want to study environmental management. So just from then, if I could go back a bit to when I was in sixth form, I had to decide what subjects I'm going to study, what plan am I going to have for my life. And the only plan I had was to study environmental science, geography, and biology. That's just the things I had to study. And then when I had to pick a subject for university, I chose environmental science. Some persons were saying it's more practical to study medicine, but I was like, I have to study environmental management, even though I may not get a job and I go back home. It's something that I love, and I don't want to be stuck studying something that I don't like, even though it could be very profitable. So at 18 years old, I left home. I spent 3 years in another island in the Caribbean called Trinidad. And I really enjoyed learning about environment, especially learning about the environment in Trinidad. And then when I came back here, of course, there was no job in environmental management. I applied so many places and got so many rejection letters, but I ended up teaching geography just like that. And at first I thought it was just to pay back my student loan, but really I enjoyed passing on my knowledge to children. And that's where my love for education happened. My mother's also a teacher, but she actually encouraged me not to teach because of all the stress, and it doesn't pay as well as she would like. But I really loved it. So I ended up teaching off and on between like 2010 up to 2018. And in between there, I did my master's degree because I realized that a lot of people have undergraduate degrees here. So you need to be on top of your game. So you had to do a master's degree. So I chose climate change. A professor at my last university said climate change is something that I should go into. So I chose it and I loved it. I love learning climate science, and I think it was something that is something urgent that we should be working on, especially being an island. We have some devastating impacts that can happen. That we can't go and move to anywhere. There's nowhere else for us to move. So we have to try to adapt to climate change impacts. So in between there, I joined the Caribbean Youth Environment Network. That was in 2013. And I was introduced to the SIDS process, which is the Small Island Developing States process. And my brain just kind of exploded, just learning all the stuff that's going on in the world and how can me, this one person, do something to change. From then on, I ended up doing exhibitions, meeting young people from around the world, doing the same thing that I'm doing, which is the best thing ever for me, is to see that people, especially people that are like teenagers, I was around 25 at the time. So it was amazing seeing people so young doing something so big and are so bold and pushing their advocacy, whatever subject they're doing. It was amazing to experience these kind of things. So regards to water, Barbados is a water scarce country. We have groundwater resources, and with climate change, it's expected to have less water, and we depend on rainfall. So there are some areas in Barbados that don't have access to, I would say, adequate running water. There was maybe a year or two ago, 6 months, they didn't have access to running water, which was devastating for them. But for me, I turn on my tap and I get water every day. So it's something that definitely needs to be worked on. They're thinking of doing desalination now. This is an issue that's happening right now. But I think a lot of people are complacent. So back then, years ago, when I was talking to people about climate change, I found it was hard to tell people about something that they can't see happening. People wouldn't believe you. They were like, oh, that's something, that's not my problem. That somebody else has to deal with that. But really and truly, all of us have to work together. If like 20 people out of 20,000 are doing the right thing and the other people are doing the wrong thing, it's going to make it worse for everybody. So I realized that everyone has to work together, especially on this little island. We only have about 300,000 people on 166 square miles. So we definitely need to work together. And the environment now seems to be a very like hyped subject right now. So people, like before, media wouldn't come to some events that we had unless we had like a minister there. But all of a sudden they're calling us to ask for our opinion. I was like, whoa, you're asking for our opinion now, like young people. It was amazing how it has changed. So now that they're listening, I say we have to have a bigger voice. And this is not just in my island, all the islands across the world. All young people should be talking to the governments. Don't be shy. Just make sure you have a plan. Make sure you know how it works in terms of policy. Learn those things. Learn how negotiations work, especially at UN conferences that your country is a party to. And which is the thing that I think is the most important, is to do things on the ground. So while you're advocating for policy changes and all that, make sure that you are actually doing things, and every little action counts. So even if you...
Jamilla, sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. But yeah, so that was my last thing, and thank you for listening.